Jesus' teachings on forgiveness, a tale of redemption. Ethan gripped the stone in his hand, his knuckles turning white. His heart pounded with rage as he stood in the marketplace staring at the man who had wronged him. Caleb, his former best friend, had betrayed him in the worst way possible, stealing his inheritance through deceit and leaving Ethan and his mother in poverty. The pain of that betrayal burned deep, and today, Ethan had a chance to make Caleb suffer. The marketplace bustled with life. Merchants shouted about their goods, children ran through the crowd, and travelers from distant lands bartered for spices and fabrics. But Ethan saw none of it. He saw only Caleb, laughing with a group of men, as if he hadn't shattered Ethan's life. Then, a hush spread through the crowd. A man in a simple robe walked toward the center of the marketplace. His presence commanded attention, not through force, but through an unexplainable peace that radiated from him. People whispered his name, Jesus of Nazareth. Ethan had heard of him, a teacher, a healer. Some even called him the Son of God. Jesus began speaking, his voice calm yet powerful. "You have heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." Ethan's grip on the stone tightened. Love your enemies? How could he love someone who had taken everything from him? As if sensing his turmoil, Jesus' eyes met Ethan's. In that moment, Ethan felt as though the man could see into his soul, into the dark corners where anger festered like an open wound. Then, a woman was dragged into the marketplace. The crowd surged forward, murmuring in excitement. "She was caught in adultery!" someone shouted. A group of Pharisees, the religious leaders, stood before Jesus. "Teacher," one of them sneered, "this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses commands that she be stoned. What do you say?" Ethan watched, his own stone still clutched in his hand. He had come here to seek justice for himself, and now another soul stood on the brink of punishment. Jesus knelt, tracing patterns in the dust with his finger. Silence stretched between him and the accusers. Then he stood and spoke words that sent chills down Ethan's spine. "Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone." The crowd held its breath. One by one, the accusers dropped their stones and walked away, their heads bowed. Soon, only Jesus and the woman remained. "Where are your accusers?" Jesus asked her gently. "Has no one condemned you?" "No one, Lord," she whispered. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus said. "Go and sin no more." Ethan's hand trembled. He looked at Caleb, then at the stone he held. He had come to punish his betrayer, but what about his own sins? Had he never wronged another? Slowly, his fingers loosened, and the stone fell to the ground with a soft thud. Caleb turned, startled by the sound. Their eyes met, and for the first time, Ethan saw not an enemy, but a broken man just like himself. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I forgive you," Ethan said, his voice steady. Caleb's eyes widened in shock. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but said nothing. Instead, he nodded, his expression filled with something Ethan couldn't quite place. Perhaps gratitude, perhaps relief. As Ethan walked away, a strange feeling filled his chest. The burden of revenge had lifted, replaced by something far greater.